people to start joining. Yeah, and we're super excited. This is our first Artsa live event, and we're very excited to partner up with the Joshua project as well. So we'll wait another minute or two before we start, and then we'll get going. Okay. We'll wait one more minute. Hi everyone, for everyone who just joined. Really excited for this. Another one more minute and then we'll start. Okay, so we'll start now, and hopefully more people are going to join in the next couple of minutes. Good evening, everyone. Really excited to be hosting the first Artsa live event, especially to have the opportunity to partner up with the Joshua Project, which is an incredible organization, which in a minute you'll hear more about them as well, as this whole event is going to be led by Rabbi Ari Lam. My name is Itai. Some of you know me, some of you don't yet know me, and I'm one of the founders of Artsa. For those of you who know, Artsa Box is a quarterly subscription box, and our aim is to try and deliver the experience and the best of Israel, the best of the Holy Land, to your doorstep across to America, wherever you are. The way we work is that we focus on a different city with every box that you receive every quarter, and we'll focus on a different city, and then we'll source all of our products from the artisans and small businesses and local businesses that live within that city. And we'll try and tell you the story of that city so that you can experience it. You'll experience the history and the story of the Bible and the people who used to live there and the people who live there now. You'll be able to connect to them. You'll be able to experience the smells, the taste, the sights, the sounds of the place. Within the box, we'll have foods and we'll have recipes and local recipes. We'll have beautiful crafts and arts and ceramics and painting. There'll be games, there'll be activities which you can play with your kids or with your parents or with your husbands and wives. We try and keep it as interactive and fun as possible, but also with this beautiful and spiritual faith element to it as well. And with every box, you'll continue on a journey with us and everyone together as we continue to travel through the Holy Land. We started off with the Nazareth box. We're currently running the Bethlehem box, which if you order today will still arrive in time for Christmas, and we will continue on to Jerusalem and to the Galilee, etc. So some of you guys have probably already ordered the Artsa box, and we would love to hear what you guys think and how it's been for you. We've heard from a lot of you already, and the response has been overwhelming, and we love hearing from you. So please reach out to us, let us know what were your favorite items, what do you love, what are you most looking forward to. And we have also a special discount code for everyone who's watching tonight. If you haven't yet subscribed and you're interested in subscribing, if you enter LIGHTS20, so LIGHTS 20 at checkout, then you'll receive a 20% discount code off of everything in our website. Anyway, I don't want to take up more of your time because we want to start the event. We're super excited. We've partnered up with the Joshua Project. Rabbi Ari Lam is going to lead the evening tonight with a beautiful Hanukkah lighting. It's 2:30 here in the morning. I'm in Jerusalem. So we'll be joining you live from Jerusalem as well. We're really excited. Wishing everyone here a happy Hanukkah and happy holidays. And I hope everyone is well. And Rabbi Ari Lam, we'd love it if you start.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Itai from the Artsa Box team. I'm so proud to welcome you into my home with my my amazing wife Shalmid, and my oldest daughter Perry, my second daughter Sarit, and my incredible youngest daughter Maya. And we at the Joshua Project are so proud to partner with Artza and delighted to be here with you this evening, because we believe, as do our friends at Artza, that the world needs the light that shines forth from the land of Israel, and we want to be part of bringing that light to others. And at the Joshua Project, we believe the greatest gift the people and the land of Israel ever gave the world is the Bible. But sadly today, what with all the shouting and the toxic content all around us on TV, on social media, and as people know less and less as the years go by about what the Bible is actually all about, it can be easy for the Bible's wisdom to be drowned out. So that's why we built the Joshua Project, where we bring you engaging videos, moving, fun podcasts, and life-altering resources for studying the Bible and applying it to some of the biggest questions we all have, from how to think about romance and relationships, loss and loneliness, and so much else. And so while we get ready to light the candles together, or maybe later tonight, I want to encourage you to check out our website, www.thejoshuaproject.com, where you can see some of our coming attractions and where you can sign up to learn much more about our full launch, which is coming up in just a few short days at the end of the month, just in time for New Year's. And finally, while I'm just about to light the Hanukkah candles with my amazing family, I invite you to join us, and I want you to think about any questions at all that you might have on your mind about Hanukkah or anything else, and anything you've ever wanted to ask a rabbi, and drop those questions right into the chat on Zoom or on Instagram or wherever you're watching. And towards the end of this event, I'll field as many of those questions as I can, time permitting, and I so look forward to hearing you. So without further ado, join us please for lighting the Hanukkah candles. Sure, of course. Let me see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoseinu bayamim ha'hem b'azman hazeh. Sure you can. Okay, you want to blow out the candle, sweet? Good job.
Oh, at least
it's okay.
At least it didn't blow it all. They like me.
You guys did great.
Oh.
You want to wave to everybody? Okay. So everybody, love you guys. Come here. Mwah. So let me tell you just a little bit about what we just did and why. The story of Hanukkah actually took place over 2,000 years ago, when the Jewish people were living in the land of Israel, and their oppressors, the Greek-speaking Seleucid Empire, these were the successors of Alexander the Great, became convinced, as have so many others, both before and since, that the values of the Bible, of the Jewish people, were a threat to the powerful and couldn't be tolerated. And so they banned the practice of Judaism and they defiled the temple in Jerusalem. And in the face of this, the Jewish people, led by the Maccabees, rose up and recaptured the temple. And one of the first things that they resolved to do when the Temple Mount fell back into their hands was light the menorah. That's an ancient Hebrew word for oil lamp, which is just like the one that we just lit over here, which was a beautiful ornament that sat in the very heart of the temple in Jerusalem, and which symbolized the light, both physical and spiritual, that has always shone forth from Jerusalem, like a beacon illuminating the entire world. But when they tried to light the temple's menorah, when the Maccabees and the Jewish people tried to light the temple's menorah, that ancient oil lamp at the temple, they found to their horror that the Greeks had defiled all of the holy oil that was used by the priests to light this ancient menorah. And they only had enough oil to last for one night, and it would take at least 8 to get any more. But what could they do? So they lit the menorah with the oil that they had, and they just hoped for the best. But to their astonishment, God, in his infinite, incredible goodness, performed a miracle. And the oil lasted not only for one night, not only for 2 nights, but for all 8 nights that it took to get more oil. Because God knew that it is precisely in the darkest of times that the brightest lights must shine forth. And there is no brighter light than the light of Jerusalem. And so for 2,000 years, the Jewish people have commemorated this miracle by lighting our own menorahs at this time of year. And that's what we've just done now with all of you. We've brought just a little bit of Jerusalem's light to the rest of the world. And indeed, in every generation, we can see this same inspiring story replaying itself over and over again. And in the 2 minutes remaining to me, I'd just like to tell you one incredible story that brings this point to life. And it's a story that took place just on the eve of the Holocaust on the German border. And it concerns a family, a Jewish family named the Geyer family, Yehuda and Regina Geyer, with their 2 young children. The Geyers, although they couldn't possibly know the horrors that awaited the Jewish people in the coming years, resolved to escape what was already a terrible situation. And over the course of the coming years, of course, the best that any of their Jewish brethren who stayed behind could expect was humiliation, beatings, starvation, and the worst that they could expect was to be burned by a smirking SS officer, sometimes even alive, in the crematoria of Auschwitz. Now, the Geyers couldn't know the full extent of the horrors that the Jewish people would suffer over the course of the Holocaust, but they knew something bad was coming and they knew they had to escape. And at that time, the only hope for Jews to escape was to have forged papers and hope that at the border, the Gestapo officers wouldn't check too closely. They would have to hope that they wouldn't look too Jewish or be too conspicuous, and that the German border police would let them by unmolested without bringing them back, kidnapping them, or killing them, or worse. And so the Geyers obtained forged papers and were on the train on the way to the German border, trying to escape to Holland. And Yehuda Geyer, the father of the family, of course, they were all very sad to leave their home, forced out as they were, but he was even more distraught because that night, the night that they left Germany, was the 8th night of Hanukkah. Tomorrow night for us was the 8th night of Hanukkah. In his entire life, Yehuda Geyer, a pious, learned Jew, had never missed lighting those Hanukkah candles that his ancestors had lit for centuries, for 2,000 years. But tonight, of course, trying to be inconspicuous, there was no possible way, he thought, that he could light those Hanukkah candles on the train trying to escape the Gestapo officers. His wife, Regina, saw how torn apart he was, took her hand in his and held it and squeezed it, knowing what they were sacrificing to evade the Nazis to save themselves and their children. And as the train pulled up to the German border, and the moment of truth arrived, they knew that it was only moments before the Gestapo officers would come on, and they'd have to hope that they didn't look too closely at their papers. When all of a sudden, as the train pulled into the station, there was an electrical failure, and the entire train station was plunged into darkness, including the train on which the Geyers sat. And he didn't know what came over him, but Yehuda Geyer knew at that moment that this was a darkness sent by God. And so he reached into his luggage and he grabbed some candles that he had secreted away in a sock. And he took 8 candles for 8 nights of Hanukkah. And he put them on the windowsill and he lit them, knowing what he was risking by performing such an obviously Jewish ritual for anybody to see. But he took that moment to light that candle, to light that light in the darkness. When all of a sudden, to his horror, he heard the stomps of the jackboots of the Gestapo officer storming onto the train. And then the door burst open to his car, and there was a Gestapo officer catching him red-handed, and he thought everything was over until the Gestapo officer smiled at him and said, "Sir, we're so glad that you lit those lights. We were going to have to wait hours to turn the lights on and inspect everybody's papers very carefully, but somebody happens to have candles on board. And so we can just do a quick check and get you on your way." They took one of the candles, checked the papers perfunctorily, and let them on their way. And Yehuda Geyer said, as his ancestors said 2,000 years before, when that oil lasted for those 8 miraculous nights, a great miracle has happened here. You know, friends, we're living in an era, whether it's global plague, economic devastation, spiritual malaise, we're living at a time when the darkness can become so oppressive that it's very tempting for people to say, what need is, how can we possibly have time for faith at a moment like this, for thinking of God, of the divine, of the higher things in life? We just need to get through the darkness. But as Yehuda Geyer knew, as the Maccabees knew, as the Jewish people have always known, as people of faith, as people of biblical faith have always known, the only light that can get us through the darkness is the light of faith. And there is no light of faith that burns brighter and that shines further than the light that has been kindled for thousands of years in the heart of Jerusalem. And so, as we light these incredible Hanukkah candles, what we do is we actually take a little bit of that light that was born at Mount Sinai and that was nourished in the Holy Land, in the land of Israel. We take a little bit of that light that the world needs so desperately. We take a little bit of that light from Jerusalem and we light it in our own homes. And we can do that by lighting a physical menorah like this, and I would say not what all of us can do, whether it's through having items, whether it's through experiencing the Holy Land, whether it's through studying the ideas that emerge from the Holy Land, those great biblical ideas. We can take that light into our own lives and bring it out to our family, our friends, our communities, and our society around us. And in doing so, we can give them the greatest possible gift that they could have at this time of darkness. Thank you so much for joining us. And now, if there are any questions, I'd love to take them.
Rabbi Lamb, the first question we have is from one of our listeners: is what does Chanukah mean? Hanukkah, what does it mean?
That is an excellent question. It's an excellent question. The word Chanukah is an ancient Hebrew word. The word Chanukah means rededicate, or means dedication. It means dedication. And the reason that this holiday is called Chanukah is because, as I mentioned earlier, the story of Chanukah revolves around the Jewish people recapturing their temple, the Jerusalem temple, from those who had defiled it, and cleansing it and rededicating it and relighting that candle in the darkness that would illuminate the world. And you know, a really interesting thing that great biblical thinkers, especially Jewish thinkers, have puzzled about for hundreds of years is that, isn't it strange that there is a holiday like Hanukkah that celebrates the rededication of the temple, that celebrates bringing it back, that celebrates recapturing it, but there is no holiday for creating the temple in the first place. Isn't that odd? Wouldn't you think that when Solomon built the first temple, there would be the first temple in Jerusalem, which was built by King Solomon of biblical fame? Wouldn't you assume that there would be a holiday for that? But the reason there isn't is because that first moment of inspiration, you bring something new into the world and it's brand new and it's exciting. So anybody can get excited by that. Anybody can get excited by a brand new idea the first time you hear it. What takes real perseverance, what takes real spiritual courage, is not getting excited that first time, not getting excited by that first moment that you feel God's presence in this world and in your life. What's special and what takes real bravery is taking that moment and recommitting to it again and again and again, days, weeks, months, and years after you first felt it. And if you can look back on a life well lived, on a life of bringing faith out into the world, and say, I wasn't just inspired by that first moment, but I was inspired by Chanukah, by rededicating myself again and again and again to faith and to light, that's when you can truly stand before your Creator with pride.
Thank you. Another question for those foodies in the crowd: what are the foods associated with the holiday of Hanukkah?
Well, it's an excellent question. So the two probably the two most popular foods associated with Hanukkah in the modern period are potato pancakes called latkes, and jelly donuts called sufganiyot, which are these jelly-filled donuts. These are common foods that Jews traditionally, certainly in recent times, eat on Hanukkah. It's become sort of a staple of the holiday. I will say there's a wonderful Jewish comedian, a friend of mine, Eli Leibowitz, was a wonderful joke that he often tells, which is that, you know, the story of Hanukkah was a battle between the Jews and the Greeks, and the Greeks idealized bodily perfection and you know, having an excellent physique. And so to celebrate our victory over the Greeks, Jews eat gross fried foods all Hanukkah so that we can look the opposite of that Greek ideal of physical perfection.
I can relate to that. Another question from one of our on Instagram, Chasing Curly Locks, asks, do you know of any good resources to teach my young Protestant children about the Jewish religion?
Fantastic question. Well, I can point you to no better place than the Joshua Project at www.thejoshuaproject.com. That is precisely what you'll be able to get there. We're bringing the great wisdom of the Bible, especially the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament, which is really one of the foundational texts of our society. It is no less America's moral founding document than the Constitution is our political founding document. And that wisdom, brought to you by the greatest Jewish teachers in the world, will be available for you on the Joshua Project. So I highly recommend you check it out. You'll see me there, and you'll see some other wonderful people there. And our podcast, of course, will feature great Jewish teachers and great teachers from the Christian faith and other people as well. So I encourage you to check it out.
Well, we did offer people to ask any questions, so I think we'll at least have time for 1 to 2 more. Another one from the Instagram community is, what is the biggest difference between Jews and Christians? Is it just whether Christ has come versus not yet? That's the question.
That is an excellent question. You know, that obviously is the biggest difference. Whether we believe that the era of redemption has already in some way begun, or whether we're still anticipating it, still waiting for it. Historically, and this is actually something that I marvel at, it's one of the great wonders of my lifetime. You know, for quite literally 2,000 years, centuries, Jews and Christians have not been able to even ask that question. I mean, asking is, you know, what are the small but extremely significant, don't get me wrong, but what are the differences between Jews and Christians? It would have been so obvious to anybody what the differences were, because so often we fought with each other. I mean, Jews were persecuted in Christian lands, and Jews and Christians were by no means friends in any meaningful way, and really in any way at all, let alone in any meaningful way. We are now living in the first time in human history where those friendships are possible. You know, people talk often about the challenges of anti-Semitism in our day, and it's true. Anti-Semitism is a problem, and we all have to stand up to it. But what excites me is that we're actually living in the first time in all of human history where there isn't just anti-Semitism. There is organized love of the Jewish people, and it is spearheaded primarily by our friends and allies, I think our natural friends and allies in the Christian community. It's something that inspires me to no end. So this is the first time in history, and I think in not just in America, especially in America, but also across the world, in Latin America and Africa, Christians and believers in biblical faith have embraced the Jewish community, and we are so proud to be able to partner with our friends in those communities in building the kind of civilization that reflects the values that we have championed to the world, that we collectively together have taught the world, that all human beings bear the divine image, that justice is something worth pursuing, that kindness, even in the face of anger and all the toxic shouting that's going around us all the time now, that kindness is something that we should persevere in. Those are the things that we can build together. The vision of a rebuilt and rejuvenated Holy Land, a project that Jews and Christians are now, for the first time in history, privileged to work on together, is something that is a unique gift that our people are experiencing in these days. And so while, of course, our communities have their own unique thought and culture and certainly our differences, this is actually the first time in history where I am proud and I feel incredibly blessed by God to be able to look to our friends in the Christian community and say, by standing shoulder to shoulder with each other, we can bring that light into the darkness.
Thank you, Rabbi Lamb. We have a couple more questions that have come into the queue here, and I want to I'm going to give you two, and then maybe I should do. There are only three, so let's do the three. First is, what is the prayer you were saying as you lit the menorah? The second is, what is the source for the name Hanukkah as you were citing before? Is it from the Talmud or is it a later origin? And finally, from Marissa in Pennsylvania, is how can we support and partner with the Joshua Project? Marissa's another good question that we'll have to hold for another time because I don't think we have enough time for that one too. So let's do those three.
That's great.
The prayer, source, and the how do we partner with the Joshua Project?
Okay, you may have to remind me of those, but let me see if I recall. So the prayer.
I'll jump in.
Excellent question. So there are two blessings that we recite before we light the Hanukkah candles. One blessing is thanking God for commanding us, for giving us commandments, for giving us rituals that we can follow. That's the first blessing we recite. And the second blessing that we recite is thanking God for the miracles that he performed for our ancestors, both in the Hanukkah story and all the other miracles that God has performed for us and for others throughout this world in so many respects and at so many times. And I think it's so critical to understand why we recite those two blessings. There are, the second blessing is in many ways the most obvious one, right? We thank God for performing miracles. And it's so obvious because when somebody does something for you that is so obviously to your benefit, what can you do but say thank you? When God performs a miracle on your behalf, when God saves you from an oppressor, when God rescues you from a broken marriage, when God comforts you when you're feeling alone, when God rescues you from poverty, from any of the other challenges that we face in our daily lives through some sort of either apparent or even hidden miracle, it's easy to thank God because we can see his presence manifest in our lives. What's more difficult is when what God has done for us is not obviously good. I mean, to have to perform rituals, to have to, to light a menorah every night for 8 nights to make sure you can't eat until you light your Hanukkah candles. And God gives us so many other commandments that, as we all know, as people of faith in our respective faith traditions, I'm sure each of us feels that the things that we're commanded to do impose obligations on us, obligations that others perhaps of no faith don't share. I mean, it sometimes feels like a burden. And yet it's precisely that the Jewish tradition demands that we thank God for. We actually thank God for giving us obligations, for giving us duties, for giving us responsibility, because it's precisely when humankind has responsibility, assumes obligations for making this world a better place, for watching after each other, that we are at our best. That's why we recite the blessing, thanking God for commanding us, for imposing upon us, because it's actually in those impositions that the true glory of humankind shines forth. So that's about the blessings. About the roots of the word Hanukkah. Excellent question. So the idea to name this holiday Hanukkah does come from the rabbinic tradition, from the long tradition passed down mouth to mouth, teacher to student for thousands of years. The name Hanukkah, the idea to name this holiday Hanukkah, does come from that rabbinic tradition, from the ancient rabbis. But the ancient Hebrew word that Hanukkah comes from, lechanech, to dedicate or to inaugurate, that actually comes straight from the Hebrew of the Bible itself, and it's the word. It is a word that is used when we talk about dedicating something, when we talk about educating our children. For example, the Hebrew Bible tells us, Chanoch lena'ar al pi darko, which in ancient Hebrew, translated into English, means you should educate each child according to his or her needs. And so the idea of finding dedications, finding moments to dedicate ourselves anew to our faith, will be different for each and every one of us. We'll each find, just as that verse says, each child, each man or woman, boy or girl will need and have different opportunities to engage their faith. And what we are called to do is try to recognize those moments and seize them. And then finally, how can you engage with the Joshua Project? I'm so pleased that you asked. Gabi, why don't you say a little bit more about where people can find us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you everyone for coming. And I'm Gabi. I work with Rabbi Lamb on the Joshua Project, and thank you, Itai, for partnering with us. Our time is coming to a close as a gathering. And for those of you who know Arts already, you should check out their beautiful website with their amazing items from the Holy Land. And the Joshua Project, our website is going to be fully live at the end of this month at thejoshuaproject.com. But if you pop over there now, the greatest good you could do for us is check out our content. We have an amazing podcast hosted by Rabbi Lamb here called Good Faith Effort, which I think will give you a new perspective on the Bible that you never heard before. And we'll have many, many different series of videos and content to study the wisdom of the Hebrew Bible through topics, not just through chapter and verse, but through things like questions about politics or your family or how to party or romance and love, the deepest and most important questions that we face as humans to be analyzed and engaged with in a fun and moving way. And so please, if you sign up on the website, you'll see and you'll hear from us when we go live, but we're already live on our site now, and you should check it out. And thank you all for coming. Rabbi Lamb, let me turn over to you for a final word.
Thank you so much to the folks from Artza Box for partnering with us. We're so thrilled to be a part of this event, and we really hope that you'll all join us, join the Artza family and join the Joshua Project family. Again, for many more opportunities where we have to celebrate, and let us all light that candle, that light of Jerusalem, and take it out from Jerusalem and shine it forth to the rest of humanity. Have a blessed evening.